Welcome to our video series on mind mapping. In this video, we'll look at exporting your mind maps into various formats. Now, with your mind maps, you can of course save them and work on them as you wish, but you also have the option of exporting them. And what this means is that you can take your mind map and effectively save or convert it to different formats. And you can choose to export the entire mind map or just a branch of it. And if you just want to export a branch, for example, if I select advertising here, then go File, Export Branch, and let's call it Advertising Branch, and save that as a mind map to the desktop. And now you see that the child nodes here have disappeared, and this node has become clickable. And if I click it, it takes me to this mind map I just saved and opens it up, which is the advertising node and the 3 child nodes. If I click that, the advertising node, it takes me back to the main mind map. So that way, if your mind map starts getting too large, or if you prefer to work with your mind maps in smaller segments, you can break them up over multiple mind map documents and make them clickable from one to the other, as we did here. Just click on Advertising and it takes you to that point in the other mind map. So you may prefer to work that way. And also it would probably make it easier for printing out, because with a huge mind map, it's obviously going to go off the edge of the page unless you're printing it across multiple pages. This way, you could just print each smaller mind map onto one single page. Okay, so that's one option. If we go to File, Export, and let's look at some of the other options. As HTML. Basically, that means as a web page. HTML files are effectively web pages. Okay, it's saved, and this is how it looks. You can see that it takes a lot of the formatting out of it. It displays it more as an indented list or outline, but that's how it looks when you export it as HTML. So let's close that. Okay, File, Export, further options as XHTML. Let's try these. XHTML is really just a development of HTML, so it just allows more functionality. So let's save that, or let's export that rather, and we'll save it to the desktop as demo.html. Okay, here's how it looks, and it does have more functionality than the plain HTML version. Expand, collapse, it collapses everything. And expand, collapse, you can expand or collapse certain branches of the structure here. But there do seem to be some issues here. For example, if I click on this advertising node, if you look here in the status bar at the bottom, it's telling us that it's trying to open up the mind map documents for the advertising branch. But you click on it and you get that, so that's obviously not particularly helpful. So if you know how to edit web pages, you may need to make some manual edits to make it work better, and to make it look better if you want to change the look as well. For example here, example file link, click that, and nothing seems to happen. The web link, click that, and surprisingly, nothing seems to happen. So you may need to work on some of these as well. Okay, back to FreeMind, and File and Export, and let's try this, XHTML as clickable map image version. It wants us to save it again, so let's just call it demo.html again, and save. And there's quite a dramatic difference in how this looks, as you can see. It actually looks like a mind map on your web page. And if you click on any of these, it jumps down the page here. But the links still don't appear to be doing anything. So again, you may need to do some manual changes there if you're okay editing a web page. But the option just detailed may be one of the best options for turning a mind map into a web page so you can put it on your website, or maybe on your company internet, or however you wish to display it through a browser. Okay, back to FreeMind and further export options. Export, and if you wish, you can just export a branch as HTML, and further options, you can export as a PDF. Adobe Acrobat format. Okay, I'm going to save it to the desktop and call it demo.pdf. And I've opened up that PDF in Adobe Acrobat Reader, and it looks pretty good. It looks pretty much as it should, but it's not clickable. If you want to make it clickable in Adobe Acrobat, you would then need the full version of Adobe Acrobat to start making some areas of this PDF document clickable. But PDF is a good way of transferring documents because they can be viewed and printed out on pretty much any computer. So you may think that this is a good option for handing out or passing along your mind map when you're ready to pass it on. Okay, back to FreeMind. File, Export. Okay. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. It seems to be quite an uncommon format that very little software actually supports. So let's skip over that because it's not a particularly useful format to export in. PNG and JPEG are both graphic formats, image formats, with the JPEG being the most common. So let's export it as a JPEG. Save it to the desktop and let's call it demo.jpg. Okay, I've opened the JPEG in an image viewer, in a graphics viewer, and you can see how it looks. It looks basically as it did in the mind mapping software. Obviously, of course, since it's an image, it's not clickable, but the content is there. And actually, one of the easiest ways probably to add your mind maps to web pages if you wish is to export them as JPEGs and then add the JPEGs to your web pages. And if we zoom in, the quality is pretty good. It's clear enough, as you can see. Definitely clear enough to publish if you wish. Okay, and the last format, File Export. And let's just take a look at OpenOffice Writer document. OpenOffice is basically free software with similar functionality to Microsoft Office. And if you go to openoffice.org, you can get it there. But what they're trying to do is get you to export your mind map in OpenOffice format. So I'm just going to call it. Okay, the extension is .sxw. Let's save. And okay, here it is on the desktop now. And if we double-click it, it should open up in OpenOffice. And okay, we actually get this message, so it doesn't appear to be recognized, in fact, by OpenOffice. Actually, it's worth noting that, as we discussed, FreeMind is free software, and it's very good free software, but there are a few imperfections with it, and a few quirks which you have to get used to if you choose to use it. And this is one of them. It said export to OpenOffice format, but OpenOffice doesn't seem to recognize it. Okay, I made a choice and got this message. The file is corrupt and therefore cannot be opened. Should OpenOffice repair the file? Let's say yes. And then it opens up the document, effectively in the OpenOffice version of Word, which is called openoffice.org Writer, and here's how it looks. So you've lost most of the information, really. You're just left with the text. And with all this extra code and values that don't really contribute much in this instance, but it's really not a recommended format to export into. So if you do want to publish and pass on your mind maps, and you don't want to pass them on in mind map format so other people can work on them, you can export them. And I would say probably the best ways to export them, with everything we've seen here, with the pros and cons of the different versions, I would say either in PDF format or JPEG format. PDF if you want to pass it on as an Adobe Acrobat document, or JPEG if you want it as an image, which you can either pass along directly or add to a web page. You may perhaps want to play around with these different XHTML export formats, but you may need to make quite a few edits to the actual web page if you're comfortable doing that to make sure that it's all actually working as it should be.